Hello, this is Dr. Sharif Mohammed, a research specialist from Kerala, India. And today we're going to demystify one of the most crucial documents in all of science, the research proposal.
So you've probably seen these, right? These amazing calls for proposals from huge institutions like the Indian Council of Medical Research or even the WHO. Think of those as the finish line, the destination you're trying to reach. So how do you get there? Well, the answer is a brilliant research proposal. It's not just a document, it's your vehicle, it's your ticket to getting that funding, securing approval, and, ultimately making a real impact.
Okay, so before we start building that vehicle, we've got to understand the blueprint. So let's start with the absolute basics. What is a research proposal anyway?
You can think of it as the complete game plan for your study, all laid out on paper. It's a formal, structured document that really has to answer three core questions. What are you planning to study? Why in the world is it important? And, crucially, how are you actually going to do it?
But I think there's a much better and much simpler way to think about it. It's a roadmap. I absolutely love this metaphor because it just perfectly captures the whole idea. See, a great proposal doesn't just list your ideas. No, it guides the reader, your reviewers, from your starting question all the way to your final conclusion. And it convinces them every single step of the way that your journey is not only important, but it's also feasible, ethical, and scientifically sound.
And let's be clear, when we're talking about medicine and public health, this roadmap isn't just a nice-to-have. It is absolutely non-negotiable. It's a critical safeguard. It's what protects human subjects. It ensures we don't waste precious time and resources. It boosts the scientific validity of our work. And at the end of the day, it's what lets us create evidence that can actually change policy for the better.
So, how do you draw a great roadmap? Well, it turns out there are some guiding principles, what I like to call the golden rules for success.
Okay, rule number 1, clarity over complexity. Always. Keep it simple, avoid the jargon. Next, you need one clear research question. Just one. Then everything has to be feasible. We're talking time, budget, your ability to get the data. Of course, it has to be ethically sound. That's a given. And finally, and this is so important, every single section has to align perfectly with all the others. It should all flow together like a single seamless argument.
This right here, this is the logical backbone that holds every great proposal together. It's like a chain of reasoning. Check this out. You start with a big, general problem. Then you find a specific gap in our knowledge about that problem. That gap? It leads you to your research question. Your question then dictates the method you're going to use. And that method is going to produce an outcome which, and here's the best part, ultimately creates the real-world impact of your work. You see how each step flows directly from the one before it? It's such a powerful structure when you get it right.
All right, so now that we have the golden rules and the logical flow down, let's put it all together. We're going to dissect the anatomy of a proposal, section by section. And to make it really clear, we'll use a real-world example to see how this works in practice. Everything kicks off with a clear title. It needs to be concise, specific, and measurable. So for our example, let's look at something like the impact of health insurance coverage on out-of-pocket expenditure among elderly patients in Kerala. Right away, from just that one sentence, you know the what, the who, and the where. Perfect. From that title, that core idea, we then boil it down to a single crystal-clear research question. For our example, it becomes this. Does health insurance actually reduce out-of-pocket spending for elderly patients in Kerala? See? That is the one central question the entire study has to be designed to answer. Nothing more, nothing less. Okay, next up, for a lot of studies, you'll need to form a hypothesis. You always start with what's called the null hypothesis. That's the default assumption that there is no effect, nothing's going on. So in our case, that would be insurance makes no difference in spending. But what you, the researcher, actually predict is the alternative hypothesis. That's your hunch. For us, it's that insured patients do have lower spending.
Now for the how part. You've got to choose your study design. And believe me, you've got a whole toolkit to choose from here. Are you going to take a quick snapshot in time with a cross-sectional study? Or maybe you'll go for the gold standard, a randomized controlled trial, to really prove cause and effect. Your choice here is absolutely critical, because it has to be the single best way to answer your specific research question.
And right alongside your design, you have to plan your data collection. So how are you going to get the information you need? Are you going to use questionnaires? Maybe dive into existing medical records or claims data? Or perhaps gather richer, more qualitative stories through interviews and focus groups? Just like with your study design, your data collection method has to be a perfect match for your question. Now, I want to pause here for a second, because this is arguably the most important part of any health-related proposal. Ethical considerations are completely non-negotiable. I mean it. They aren't an afterthought you tack on at the end. They are the absolute foundation of your entire study. This means getting informed consent, guaranteeing patient confidentiality, and of course securing approval from an ethics committee before you even think about starting your research.
Okay, so while that core structure is pretty much universal, the focus of a proposal can really change depending on the field. So let's quickly compare how proposals look in, say, medical research versus public health research.
And you can see the contrast so clearly here. Medical research, it really zooms in on the individual patient. It's all about clinical results, and it often uses experimental methods. So the ethics are laser-focused on protecting that one person. But public health, it zooms out. It's looking at the entire population. It's about changing systems, influencing policies, and it often uses observational methods. So the ethics here involve much broader social implications. They're really two sides of the same coin, just looking at health from very different but equally important perspectives.
And that brings us right to the ultimate purpose of this whole process, turning a simple idea into meaningful, real-world action.
When you boil it all down, a great proposal is really a bridge. It takes that initial spark of an idea and it transforms it, using a scientifically and ethically sound plan, into something real. It becomes a study that's actionable, credible, and has the power to genuinely influence policy and improve people's lives. That's the end goal.
So you see, a research proposal isn't just some boring document you have to fill out. No, it's a declaration of intent. It's your detailed plan to explore the unknown and bring back knowledge that truly matters. Now you have the roadmap. The only question left is, what discovery will you chart first?